Today's guest is Pericles Realis. He has over 25 years of helping people create healthy relationships with money and themselves so they can live a life of joy, happiness, and fulfillment. I will tell you, I learned and had a few really key takeaways today and really changed the way I view my mindset around money. I think you're going to love him and learn so much. Who's the person you're being? Are you satisfied? Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious, for people ready to explore their true potential. I'm your host, Annie Randall. Join me and let's get ready to go on this journey together. Welcome to Be the Person podcast. You are in for such a treat today. I have Pericles Realis with me, and he is a money mindset expert. I was telling him before we hit record, I learned so much in preparing for this, and I cannot wait for you to hear from him. You are going to learn so much. Welcome to the podcast.
And thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, money mind expert, how did you get, or money mindset expert, how did you get to this place? And can you share a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, my original background when I was very young was theater. I was raised in a theater family, and so that's where I wanted to go. And that's what I did. For many years, I was in the live entertainment industry. I worked in live theater as a production stage manager, company manager, things like that. But then it kind of ran its course, and I was ready to move on to the next thing. And in the process of creating myself again, I stumbled upon through somebody who cared very much about me and shared it with me, some self-exploration program, kind of like self-development, that kind of thing. And it was the first time in my life where I started to explore me, really looking at who I am and what I'm committed to, and am I really looking to make a difference in the world, things like that. And as a result of that work, I decided I wanted to coach people in the realm of business. I wanted to help them be successful, whether they were business owners or individuals, entrepreneurs, things like that, to make more money, earn more money. And so I started working with clients. And early on, I noticed two things. One, they were making more money, which is exactly what I wanted. And number two, it didn't seem to be making any difference. They were still stuck in the same place they were stuck before they started working with me and were making less money. And so I was like, what's going on? Because if they were just treading water before they started working with me, they were still treading water. If they were behind every month, they were still behind. If they were stressed or had anxiety about money, they still had stress and anxiety. And it literally made no sense to me, because in my world, I thought, well, if you make more money, all those things should go away. So I stopped and I said, okay, there's got to be something going on, because it was consistent with all my clients. And for the next 2.5 years, with their permission, when I was working with them and when I wasn't working with them, I was really delving into what was going on. What was the source of this pattern? And I discovered two things during that time. One is that we all have something that I call a financial thermostat. It's our money mindset, but financial thermostat is more, I think it's easier for us to relate to. We've all worked with a thermostat, and its sole purpose is to regulate how much money we can earn, how much money we can keep, as well as our thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. And the second thing I discovered were the 4 keys to resetting that financial thermostat. So at that stage, I started working with my clients and implementing these distinctions in these conversations. And suddenly the results were explosive. They were so happy. They were so fulfilled. They were making money, keeping money, having more money than they'd ever had before. And so they started telling their friends and their colleagues and other business owners that they knew, and it just kind of took off from there. And I realized at that point, this was my calling. I really loved doing this. And this was in that moment of time when I started focusing on being a money mindset expert. And it's grown and evolved since then, which has been the past 25 years.
I love that. So you talk about a financial thermostat. Tell me more about that, and how do you know what your setting is there?
Great questions, both. So the first thing is, our financial thermostat works very much like, or exactly like, a thermostat in our home. So if we set that temperature at 72 degrees, that thermostat's going to keep that room at 72 degrees. If it gets too hot, it's going to kick on the AC, bring it back down. If it gets too cold, it's going to kick on the heat, do the same thing. 72 is all it knows. Well, imagine that we have a financial thermostat that does the same thing. It is set for you to be able to make a certain amount of money. And no matter how hard you try, you are not going to be able to make more than that. It's that glass ceiling that a lot of people talk about. I just can't break through. If it is set at you keeping a certain amount of money, no matter how much money you keep, you're going to disappear that money. You will not understand where it's going. How many people say, oh my gosh, I don't know where my money goes every single month.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenon that is a direct correlation to our financial thermostat. And if you're somebody who's just not fulfilled, somebody who thinks you're going to find love, joy, or happiness, but you can't, no matter how much money you make, that's again the function of your financial thermostat setting for you're going to always be stressed when it comes to money, or you're going to always have anxiety when it comes to money. So when we reset that financial thermostat, we're able to then earn more, we're able to keep more, and we're able to have a better understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. And I say that because this becomes a very spiritual conversation where people start to look for money for a certain reason. Well, if I get enough money, I'll be happy, or I'll have love, or I'll have security. Money won't provide any of those things. But if we reset our financial thermostat so we can have love right now before the money ever shows up, or have that security right now before the money ever shows up, what then happens when the money does show up is, whoa, I don't need the money for what I thought I needed it for because I've already got that. So now what am I going to do with this money? So that's how the financial thermostat works. Now, how to know what your setting is right now? Just
Yeah.
take a look and see how it is. How much money are you able to earn? How much money are you able to keep? And what are your thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money when you start to talk about it or engage with it or think about it or work on it? All of those things are direct correlation to where your financial thermostat setting is right now.
Okay, great. And that makes total sense to me. But what if, like you said, you're looking for money or love or security? Let's say security, I think, is maybe a valid one in our
Mhm.
economy right now. Let's
Yep.
take that and say, I'm relying on money for security. I know that's
Right.
part of my financial thermostat. How would I
Right.
work to reset that?
Yeah. So money flows as a current. It flows like a current. As a currency, it flows like a current, just like electricity or water or wind. It has a distinct way in which it flows, in that it flows in a circle. So as this universal band of energy, and it flows in a circle, and we intersect that circle. So it flows to us, through us, and away from us, and then back around to us, through us, and away from us. And there's a reservoir on the side that we get to keep. Now, because it flows in this circle, blocks anywhere in that flow are ultimately blocks everywhere in that flow. So blocks in the flow of money coming to us can be things like money's the root of all evil. You can't buy happiness. I hate the wealthy. I hate my boss. If you are wealthy, you did it or got there by some nefarious way, right? Those are all blocks in the flow of money coming to us. Those are not just all, that's not all of them, just a few. And then blocks in the flow going away from us are things like, I hate paying my fair share. I hate paying full price. I will never pay somebody on time. I'll always hold that money back as long as I can. Or I just hate spending money, right? All of those things are blocks in the flow of money going away from us. And ultimately, they block the flow everywhere. And then on the reservoir on the side, things like, I'm not worth it. I don't deserve money. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not handsome enough or pretty enough. Those are all blocks in the flow of money going to that reservoir on the side. So what we need to do in order to reset our financial thermostat, for example, using love as your example, we want to look and see, where are we blocking money flowing to us in the conversation of how it relates to love. So if I think money's going to buy me love, or I'm sorry, you were saying security. Forgive me, I'll take a step back here. Security. I've got love on the brain for some reason. So security, right? We're unable to bring that sense of security into our lives. So look and see, well, what's the conversation I have around money when it comes to security? Well, I think money actually will provide me with security. Well, let me tell you this. I've worked with billionaires, people on the list, the Forbes list billionaires, and some of them have absolutely no sense of security. They've got tons of money, but they're constantly dealing with problems, things that all that money will not make a difference on. Absolutely no effect, right? And I've worked with people with very little money, and they have a complete sense of security. So that security does not come from the money itself. It actually comes from here. So what are my negative conversations around money? Or what are my off conversations around money that I can then clear? And that will allow me to reset my financial thermostat. So how do we do that? There are 4 steps that I've created for us to clear any block in the flow of money. This is also true for love. Love flows in a circle. Where are we blocking it to us and away from us? So in other emotions as well. So we want to look at step number 1, own the conversation. Recognize and own that you've had that conversation. Wow, I've actually had this thought that money is going to provide me with security. I've had that since I was very, very young, right? Okay, I can own that conversation. That's step number 1. Step number 2, I'm now going to let it go. I'm going to release it into the care of something bigger than me, something outside of me, whether it's God or the universe or the trees outside of the ocean, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. I release and I let go of that conversation. I surrendered into the care of the universe to do with as you please. It is no longer part of my thought process. It is no longer welcome in my realm. It no longer has dominion over me. Then when you feel that first sense of relief, like, oh, I can kind of feel that conversation moving away, then step 3 comes into place. What is the relationship you want to create with money now? What is the relationship you want to have with money now? Because you'll have to take it on my word, and you don't have to buy this is the truth of all truth, but I've seen it. Money will not buy that sense of security. So now what is it you want to create? Well, I actually have security in my life, in every area, every moment. I actually have security in my life, in every area, in every moment. And you want to feel that. You want to own that. You want to feel the energetic vibration that creates. Like, wow, I actually do have that sense of security and that sense of freedom. And then the 4th step is go out and watch for it manifesting in your life. Something happens, and normally it would throw you off kilter, like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. I don't have the money to deal with this. And you realize, whoa, I didn't freak out like that. I actually stayed grounded. I stayed present, and I dealt with it from that grounded, present place, and it got sorted out. And I didn't have to deal with it in the sense of money. So we're looking for it manifesting in our lives. So we take all 4 of those steps and imply them. And then anytime that old conversation shows up, and it will never go away forever.
Yeah.
You do the same 4 steps again. Oh, there's that old conversation. I let you go. I'm going to let you go again. And this is who I am in the world. I am secure every day of my life, right here, right now. Whatever it is that I said, right? You want to write it down so you don't forget it, because you'll create it in that moment like I did, and then you'll forget it. So you want to write it down, have it by your nightstand, have it on your computer, have it on your mirror in the bathroom, so that you're constantly present to it. And then you're out in the world looking for it.
Love that. Do you think a lot of people don't even recognize like some of their thoughts or beliefs around money until they really take a look of, oh, I did look at money for security, or I have fear around money, or all of those things that come up for us around money?
Yeah, most of these conversations operate in the background. It's kind of like having a computer. We don't think about the system software until it says, we need to update your software, restart, right? But there's nothing in our world that we create generally by ourselves that says we need to look at our system software, we need to update it. Somebody on the outside may say, you know what, that's an odd conversation you're having around money. I don't necessarily agree with that. And that might spark us or trigger us to think, wow, I really do need to look at that. So I think for most of us, it operates in the background. And when we bring it from that background into the foreground, into the frontal cortex, where we bring that critical thinking, suddenly we can start to notice things about our relationship to money that we never noticed before.
Yeah.
And when we do that, then we can start the exploration of, well, how do I really relate to money? What do I think about money? What are my limiting beliefs about money or my blocks around money? And then I can start clearing them. And that's where the real journey begins. That's when we start to see all the layers of the onion, because there are many, many. I'm still seeing things today. Every time I have a conversation, I'm seeing something new, or I'm seeing it newly, which opens up a whole nother area. When I first started doing this, it was all about making more money and being happy. Now it's a conversation of money. Our relationship with money is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. Well, that is something I never would have thought of before. And so the more I have this conversation, the deeper it gets and the more impactful it becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite company for clean protein is by far and away ButcherBox. Everything they sell is humanely raised, no antibiotics. You get to choose what comes in your box, whether it's beef, chicken, pork, seafood, and you get to choose all of the cuts you want as well as how often you want. It's shipped direct to your house, so every time I go to cook dinner, there's meat in my freezer. They're giving our audience $50 off the first box. See the link in the show notes. I'm just curious what you saw, just because we live in an area where it's pretty fresh of COVID. It's several years ago, but still a really big deal around money because so many people lost their jobs. For us, we owned Orange Theory Studios, and that for me, I was thinking about this conversation today and how probably that changed my relationship with money because we had a real successful business. Overnight, it went to a zero revenue business. So the flow of money was affected. And then the flow of money out, like we had to be real careful because we didn't know when business was coming back. And so I think over these years, that's really affected, my view on money. And so when I was preparing, I was just thinking about this all, and just wanted your thoughts overall, if you thought COVID affected other people as well.
Yeah, and I was having this conversation not too long ago. COVID caused a global mindset shift around money. And there was a period of time when we were in a crisis. People were dying by the tens of thousands every single day. Businesses, nobody could go to work. The government was trying to do what the government could do in terms of revenue, providing people with extended unemployment, additional benefits, things like that. And over time, what happened was we started to settle into and own this mindset of things are bad. Things are bad. Things are bad. Things are bad. I mean, how many times did we hear that? It was over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, and I want to be really clear, I'm not having a political conversation at all. I am just having a on the ground, what's happening, what's so conversation. And then what happened was we started to move out of the COVID critical area into, okay, we've got vaccinations, people can start going back to work, people can start doing the things that they did before, getting back to that normal state. And yet we were still in the mindset of things are bad. And then all of a sudden the economy started growing and inflation started coming down and the stock market started to roar and payroll started to go up and things were bad. And we lived in this mindset of things are bad in the face of the facts that things were no longer bad. Things were way better than they were pre-COVID. But because we had this mindset, this block in the flow that said they were one way, we couldn't see the truth. We couldn't see the facts on the ground. And so collectively, we were living in this mindset. And until we shifted that and started stopping and saying, wait a minute, things aren't that bad. I'm actually making more money than I was making before. Or I'm actually making the same amount of money as I was making before. I just got this mindset that things are bad. Bless you. Then we can start looking at, wow, I've just been operating from this weird space. Now I'm going to create a new space to operate inside of. I'm going to create a new relationship to money, a new relationship to the way things are right now. Wow, things are actually prosperous. I'm prosperous. I can start to prosper. Then we start to look at things differently. We look at new opportunities. We start manifesting different options, different things in our life that weren't there before because we were thinking things were bad. So I think once we start to, and look, I'm clear that for many people, the facts on the ground were different. And I'm not discounting that. There were a lot of people that suffered and a lot of people that still suffer. What I'm trying to illuminate and trying to bring to the forefront is that the moment we shift our context, we shift our thinking from this is horrible to, okay, I've got this to deal with and I'm going to create prosperity in the face of this. Would I rather this didn't happen? Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather this didn't happen. But here I am, and I'm going to create my way out of this. And I'm going to start with my thinking and then my feeling. I'm going to look for the things I can be grateful for every day. I'm going to look for the miracles that happen in my life, no matter how small, and I'm going to celebrate them. And those celebrations will beget more things to celebrate, and more gratitude will beget more things to be grateful for. And start to tell that story about your life rather than the things are bad story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
You did. And I think that was really great because I think a lot of people, lived in that or are still living in that.
Mhm.
Things are bad. And if we're not careful, like, again, there are some people that are really challenged, and I get that. But a lot of times, that big event flipped a switch for people that I don't think they've necessarily flipped back.
Correct. And we see this, we could easily say that COVID was a traumatic event. I mean,
Mm.
I think arguably we could say we were globally traumatized by this event. And we see events like this on a single person scale. So one individual has something that's traumatic that happens to them, or two people have something that's traumatic that happens to them. And then we can see how two people dealing with the same traumatic event can deal with it in different ways. So one person has a traumatic event, and that becomes the conversation they live in for the rest of their life. This victim of trauma. And I'm not diminishing that whatsoever. I'm simply stating it as an observation. And then we have somebody who has the same exact experience around something that's traumatic, and they move beyond it. And they live a life of power and freedom, of joy and happiness, having had the same traumatic event. So it's not the traumatic event per se. It's how we choose to address it, how we choose to deal with it. And so when we look and say, okay, I'm dealing with trauma, I need help. Are you willing to lean on the people who can help you? Are you willing to reach out and get help so you can move beyond the trauma? Or are we going to embrace the trauma and hold on to it as our identity? We get to choose. And I'm not saying one way is better than the other. It's up to us to choose. But there is something to observe about that. And I think when we choose the latter, which is like, you know what, this is not going to define me for the rest of my life, I'm going to move on from this, then suddenly new possibilities start to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, owning a business? A lot of times I'm strictly ROI driven of like, what is my return on investment if I invest this money? And when I was preparing for this, I was really thinking, ROI to me, a lot of times I think in dollars, and I think most people do. But then I was thinking, what if we shift our ROI to, when we go on family vacations, we create all those wonderful memories with our family. And so that's a totally different ROI.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on mindset shifts around changing the ROI.
Yeah. It rather than a return on your investment, how about a return on your vacation?
Mm.
Like I've got this vacation planned out in the future. It's in 3 months or 6 months or whenever it is. And I'm putting that money aside so that I know when I go on vacation, it's paid for. And that investment in my future, my vacation, is sourcing me now to continue to do my best work, to continue to serve the people I serve at the highest level. That will then provide me with a much higher return on the work that I'm doing, because people will love working with me because I'm loving doing what I'm doing, and I'm providing a higher level of service because I'm not doing the work to do the work. I'm doing the work to make a difference with the people that I'm working with, and to have that amazing vacation that I'm looking forward to, or make that purchase that I want to make, or whatever those things are that we want to add to our lives that enhance the quality of our life, right? That's a really great context to hold things in. I'm always operating from my next trip. Where am I going next? And that just is like, oh, I can't wait to go. Now, I'm not suffering in the present because I'm not on vacation. I'm actually inspired in the present because I've got that vacation out there, and I'm doing the work that I do that allows me to take this amazing vacation. So when we operate from that place, serving at the highest level, doing what we love because we love doing it, and then having something out in the future that we get to benefit from because of the work that we're doing, such an amazing context to work inside of.
Yeah, really good. I like that premise of just that whole thing of looking at it differently and not just as an investment because it is so much more than that.
Mm. Yep. There's an old a proverb I love. There's a man walking down the road, a traveler, and he comes upon this guy who's got a pickaxe and he's chipping stones and he's sweating and he's cursing and he just looks miserable. And the traveler says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm chipping these stupid stones." And the traveler says, "Okay." And he carries on down the road. And a little bit further down, he comes another guy, same kind of pickaxe, and he's just whistling and just seems so happy and he's chipping away. And he says, "What are you doing?" And the guy says, "I am building a cathedral."
Mm.
And we're doing the exact same activity, but the context in which we're holding it is completely different. And that context will give rise to the world we live in and the experience that we have. So when we take that context on, we wake up in the morning and say, this day sucks. I can't believe I have to get up so early. Well, you just created a context for your entire day.
Yeah.
But let's say you wake up and you open your eyes and you think, I have a blessed life. I am so happy that I get another day to do what I love. Even if it's not what you want to be doing for the rest of your life, find something that you love about that job. That job is providing you with money so you can have a roof over your head. You can have food. You can have money to do the things that you want to do, and a bridge between where you are and where you want to be as you build or create that new business that you want. So wake up and find something to be grateful about in your life every single day and have that be what you start your day in. And then when you go to bed at night, oh, I'm so grateful for this day. I'm so grateful for the difference I made or the work that I did and the opportunities that I have. And then go into your dream world inside of that. That is an extraordinary way to live a life.
Yeah, really great. I love the story of the man building the cathedral, because you're right. It's the exact same context, but
Yep.
it changes everything. Just your outlook.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What about your financial thermostat and just relationship to happiness, the impact it has on happiness, your joy level? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's an interesting dichotomy, or there's an interesting relationship between the two. So we've got the relationship that's generally a false relationship with what money can provide. We think money will provide us with certain things. We think it will buy us love. We think it will buy us happiness. We think it will buy us security. And so we work really, really hard to make more money. If I just get to $100,000 a year, I'll be happy. I'll be secure. I'll find love. And we get to $100,000 and it's not there. And we think, okay, well, it's just 200. If I get to 200, and now we're on the hamster wheel and we're chasing after something that it can never provide. And we will stay on that hamster wheel for the rest of our lives until we decide to jump off. And when we jump off is when we noticed, okay, my financial thermostat is set for that emotional state, for something it can never provide. Well, let's look and see, well, what can money provide us and what can't money provide us? Then we're having a conversation about, wow, I'm getting really clear on what it can and can't provide. So now I've got this vision that, okay, I want money for this, and it actually can provide me with that. Or I wanted money for that, but it can't. So now I'm not going to think about money for that. I'm going to look internally. So happiness, let's say joy and happiness, that comes from within. There is nothing in your life externally that's going to provide you with joy and happiness or fulfillment for an extended period of time, no matter what it is. They may enhance your joy and happiness. They may bring you some joy and happiness for a short period of time, but you're the source of your own joy and happiness. And when you can find that in here, as I was saying earlier, then all of a sudden when the money shows up, it's like, whoa, I was originally wanting the money for this, but I got it already. So now what am I going to do with this money? And then you get to have fun planning on what you're going to do with that money to enhance your life, to enhance the joy that you have in your life, rather than it being the source of joy. Look, I've got things all around me that I love. They're beautiful things. I've collected them over many, many years. And I walk into my office and I'm like, oh, I love this portrait behind me, or I love that book or this thing or whatever it is, but it's not the source of my joy and happiness. It's an enhancement to it. It adds something to it, but it would never provide that if I wasn't joyful and happy already within. So it just amplifies it and allows me to have an experience. I could lose all of this stuff and I'd still have joy and happiness in my life because it comes from here.
I think what you said is so key. And I think if people really listen, honestly, it could change their life because so many times we are on that hamster wheel
Mhm.
a lifetime of trying to get things that money can't buy. But we're like,
Right.
why? One more thing, whether it's things or money, like you said, or the vacation or the girlfriend or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, you're looking in the wrong spot. Get off of the wheel. But when
Right.
you're on that wheel, it just seems like it's just a little bit further ahead.
Right. It's like that carrot that's on the stick that's just in front of you, but the stick's attached to you. So no
Mhm.
matter how far you go, the carrot's still in front of you. You're never going to reach it. I I I love this. I love to correlate our relationship with money to our relationship with a significant other. If we were to relate to a significant other the way we relate to money, we'd all be single or we'd be in damaged relationships. So if we wanted our significant other, I want them when I want them. I want them when I want them, where I want them. And when they're here, I'm just going to walk around and show off to everyone. Look how awesome I am. This has got this great person on my arm. Look how sexy they are, how beautiful they are. They're good. And then when they're not there, I'm not thinking about them. I'm not concerned about it. I have no appreciation, no thought about it whatsoever. But hey, you need to come over today because we're going out. I want to show you off to everybody. Well, that relationship would be over very, very quickly. You know what? I need you to rebuild my engine. I need you to go do that right now. Well, we're expecting them to do something that they have no skill set in, they have no capacity to do. Well, that's the way we relate to money. Now, what if we flip that on its head? What if, like Jack Nicholson said in As Good as It Gets, you make me want to be a better man? What if we thought about money in that way? I want to be a better person in my relationship with money. I want to understand it better. I want to be able to interact with it in a way so that it lasts and grows and gets better and better for the rest of my life. That's what we want with a relationship. We want our relationship to get better and better every day. We want it to last for the rest of our lives. We're not going to just use it up and throw it away. No, we wouldn't want to do that. So, what if we did that in our relationship to money? If when it's not there, we're thinking about it, we're grateful for it, we so appreciate it, and we're thinking about, okay, how can I interact with this better? How can I make it better? How can I make it grow? How can I make it last longer? What are the things I can do to nurture this relationship? That's the way we want to start to relate to money. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, what's a good starting point? Start there. Start looking at, well, if money was actually my significant other, how would I relate to it? How would it want me to relate to it as well? And what expectations do I have of it that perhaps I shouldn't have of it? And then you'll start getting clearer and clearer about your relationship.
Such great advice. I think that's a really good place for people to start. One thing that really honestly bothers me is I have 3 teenagers and our school system or our education system all around money. Because I would love it if my dad talked to us a lot about money, but I feel like a lot of parents don't. And when you look at kids' education, there's not a lot tied to money, especially not about the mindset behind money. But yet it's such a driver to success in our lifetime. Any advice for parents that are listening? And like, I have teenagers, I have 3 of them. We've talked to them a lot about money. I don't know if they've listened, but we talk a lot of like, I don't want it to be one of those taboo subjects, but I would love advice for myself as a parent and for other parents out there.
Yeah, the first thing that we want to know is for ourselves is regardless of what you think your kids are picking up on, if you're stressed and worried about money, or if you've got negative relationship to money, you're not hiding it from your kids. They know. They're sponges. They're like little vibrational detective frequency things. They can tell when mom and dad are stressed, when mom and dad are upset about something. So hiding it is never going to work. That's the first thing I would share for everyone. Don't hide what's going on. And then look for yourself. Okay, I've got to transform my relationship to money. I've got to stop stressing around money, because if you stress around money, your kids are going to stress around money. End of story, full stop. They're going to pick up on that, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And that's how we get these generational financial thermostats going on. So it gets passed down from grandparents to parents to grandkids to great grandkids, etc. And until we start to bring to the forefront our relationship to money, okay, what is going on for me right now? I just got triggered around money. What's that? What's happening? What's that block? Clear that block out. And then having straight and authentic conversations with our kids about it. That's when we're going to be able to break and reset those financial thermostats. And I have a lot of people say, well, what do I say to my kids when we can't afford something? I say, you tell them you can't afford it. We've not saved up the money for this. And the younger they are, the better it is, because you raise them inside of this conversation, and they're going to live their whole life inside of money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. You start sharing that with them, they will grow up inside of that mindset. I have somebody that I knew a long time ago, and his mom, when he was very young, used to tell him every night they'd count his money in his piggy bank. And he'd count how much was in there, and then he'd go to sleep. And when he was sleeping, his mom would come in and put more money in. And then when he woke up the next morning, she'd say, let's count it again. And he'd see there was more money. His money was magically growing. Well, he had this mindset that my money grows. And everywhere he goes, money just shows up. Imagine living in that kind of a world, right? And I'm not talking about a fake world. I'm talking about a real world. I know people that their mindset around money is so extraordinary. If they were to trip over a bucket, it would be filled with money, and then they would fall into a pit that was filled with money. And then I know other people that if they were to trip over a bucket, the person who owned the bucket would sue them, and then they would lose all their money because they got sued by the person who tripped over the bucket. Same exact experience, different mindset. So when we start to shift our mindset and then start to have straight conversations with our kids about money, oh, I want this. Okay, well, how much money have you saved for it? Well, I wanted you to get it. Okay, well, that's more money than I want to spend on a gift for you right now. Here's what we can do. I can get you this because I have the money to buy you this right now. But if you want this thing, let's start looking at setting some of your allowance aside. We give you money every week for allowances for doing chores, right? And what we're going to do now is we're going to start setting a little bit aside so that you can get that thing you want. And then every day we're going to put that money aside, or every week or whenever it is, and we're going to create 3 little or 2 little jars or containers. And we're going to put this money here that you're going to be saving for later. And then this money here for that thing that you want. And then every day we can count it. And every day we can look at it. We can watch it getting more and growing more and more. And then when you have enough money to go buy that thing, we can go to the store and we can get that thing. Now, here's the thing that shifts. When they've been working and they've been setting that money aside and they've been thinking about it and planning for it, and all of a sudden they've got that money in their hand and they go to get that thing, suddenly they're thinking differently about, do I really want this thing? I've been spending all this time saving this. Do I really want this thing? And oftentimes they'll be like, you know what? I don't want that thing. I want to keep saving my money. I want to keep growing. I want to have more and more and more. And now they're in a different conversation. Now they're in a conversation of the value of money, like what money can provide and what money can't provide. Well, I wanted that toy because it was going to bring me instant gratification. They're going to probably play with it for 2 minutes and never look at it again. But now they've put in the work and the effort to save the money for that thing. Now they're looking at it differently. Well, I'm not going to be that happy with that thing. So maybe I'll start strategizing for something else. And then you can start expanding. Okay, well, you've got this money in this other container. What if we were to put it somewhere where it could grow all by itself on top of the money? What do you mean? Well, this is how bank accounts work, or this is how savings accounts work, or this is how investments work. And then you can start bringing that conversation in. And now they're looking at the world from, well, how do I make this relationship with money better? Right? That's, I think, a really great way to start having these conversations. And then you want to make sure that you're bringing in the conversation of really appreciating money, being grateful that it's coming into your life, treating it like it's somebody special. Well, is this how you would treat mommy? Or is this how you would treat daddy? No. Okay, why would you treat money that way? Boom. Now they're having a completely different conversation and relationship with money and how they look at it.
Yeah, so good. Because I think you're right. There's a lot that you unpacked there for us as parents, and that was awesome. It's one, the delayed gratification in teaching
Mhm.
that. and then just overall that relationship with money and what it can buy and what it can't buy, of like being on that hamster wheel. I think
Right.
that's so important.
Yep. And I didn't say this, but you just pointed to it, and I think it's important, is that instant gratification is fading and fleeting. They'll get that instant gratification and then they'll want the next thing. And then they'll want the next thing. And that's them trying to fill a void, trying to find that source of joy and happiness with something outside of themselves. And that's the lesson that they ultimately learn. Wow, I can be happy without that thing. I can be happy with just being with mommy and daddy, or doing something fun with them, playing a game with them, versus having to buy something that I'm probably not going to use very much, right? And then they start bringing that critical thinking to every single time they're going to spend money. It would be just like every single time you're going to spend time with your significant other. Are you cherishing that time? Are you appreciating that time? Or are you just being frivolous with it and inconsiderate with it? Those are the conversations we want to start empowering our kids to have.
Yeah.
Sorry, my little one wants to get up here, and just making room for him. He likes to join me with these conversations sometimes.
Well, I always love to wrap up with favorite 1 to 2 books, and it can be on the topic of money, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm just curious what those would be for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are two books that come to mind. The first one is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This is a great book for people who are dealing with trauma or stress or anxiety or worry. This completely altered my life when I had an extremely traumatic event happen back in 2018, and my whole life changed, right? It was world changing for me. And so The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I highly recommend that. And then another book that I love is, and I'm probably going to get the title wrong, but Breaking the Habit of Being You by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It may be Breaking the Habit of Being Me, but something like that. But it's all about altering our lifelong habits that we've fallen into and we're very familiar with, we're very comfortable with. And now we say, okay, I want to alter that. Well, this gives you some really great tools for breaking that habit and creating new ones that empower you in the way you want to be empowered.
Yeah. I love Joe Dispenza. And I think a lot of some of what you're talking about is absolutely that of, being on the hamster wheel and deciding to get off. That was such a great book. I'll make sure I get the title in the show notes, but
Mm.
such a great book. Really does change your mindset.
Mm.
Yeah. What would be, I think people are going to listen and want to hear more and learn more from you. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, there are two places that you can go if you want to take this to the next level. You can go to my website, periclesrealis.com, or my website, resetyourfinancialthermostat.com. They both go to the same place. And right there on the main page is a link to my free masterclass, The 4 Keys to Resetting Your Financial Thermostat. You just enter your email and you've got instant access. It will provide you everything you need to start resetting your financial thermostat right now.
Awesome. Thank you for providing that. I know that I'm going to definitely go to your website and get that, and I think the audience should as well. So I appreciate you giving that.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining Be the Person podcast. If this resonated with you and you need to share it with someone, please do that. It could really change their whole relationship on money and resetting their financial thermostat. Pericles, thank you for all the value you provided today. I really, really appreciate you.
And thank you so much for having me on. It has been my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks all for listening. Have a great rest of your day.